Welcome to Spacious Creative. I am Cindy Ingram.
And I am Heather Doyle Fraser. And in this podcast, we're exploring the process and practice of creativity, but with the foundation in compassion.
In this limited series, we'll dive into how creative expression shows up in our lives, from childhood inspirations to the challenges of perfectionism and everything in between.
Whether you're reconnecting with your inner child or reimagining your creative identity and how you can harness more creativity in your life, Spacious Creative is here to inspire and support your journey. Hello, we are back with the Spacious Creative Podcast. I'm Heather Doyle Fraser, and I have with me one of my best collaborators, Cindy Ingram.
Hello, glad to be back.
And we today are going to talk about something that we both hear often with people that we work with, and that is the very short and untrue statement, I am not creative.
I'm not creative. I'm just not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's what I hear that all the time. I don't have a creative bone in my body, or I don't understand all you people who are so creative.
Yeah.
I'm not creative at all. I beg to differ.
You're wrong. Sorry, but you're wrong.
I mean, as a human, you are born of creativity and you also have the ability to create other humans. So let's just start with baseline. Okay. So like right away, like baseline, you have the ability to create, period. Done.
Yeah. And so like you could argue that your main function on this planet is to create.
Right.
That's what you're here for.
Right. That's the most basic base level explanation. That doesn't satisfy people though. I hear it. Yeah, but come right after that. And then usually when I'm talking to someone, it's because they're writing something. Oh, well, what do you call this then? What are we doing together? What have you been spending time on? This writing that you've been doing, that is creativity. That is creating. Did you cook anything today? Oh, that's creating. Did you solve a problem today? Ooh, that's being creative. Did you rearrange your furniture?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you decorate your room?
Yeah. Did you do some kind of doodle on a piece of paper at some point in the past week? Yes. Okay. Did you just draw squiggly lines? Did you do something, did you hum something? Did you, like, I could go on and on.
Did you dance to your favorite song while you were cleaning the house?
Did you even do a little shoulder wiggle? I mean, right there. You don't have to do a full-on dance. You can do just a shoulder wiggle or a chair dance, a toe tap. You're starting the process of creativity when you're engaging and participating in these things.
Yes. Right. And before we get too deep into this conversation, we have a program that we've told you about every time, and we're super excited about it. But if you are one of those people who are like, I'm not creative, but you're listening to a podcast about creativity, I think you're the exact right person to be taking our new program called the Spacious Creative.
Yeah. Because it's not just one type of, creativity modality either. We're going to be looking at lots of different things that you're probably really interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the fact that, really solely based on the fact that you're actually listening to this conversation, you're clearly interested in it. But you will get to read poetry and watch dance and interpret art. And then, try your hand at a few of those things too. And gently and compassionately and with support, really kind of uncover what the layers and complexities of your own creativity and your own creative process.
And I think that piece that you just said about in a compassionate, safe environment is really important, because there's a reason why people don't adopt like the moniker of I'm creative because it doesn't necessarily feel safe.
Yeah.
And so even though we were laughing about that at the beginning of the conversation, that is the thread that runs through this whole program, which is creating a safe space for you to be able to embrace some of that creativity and feel a little more comfortable with engaging and participating in it. Because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to do that. And we've talked about that many times before in different ways, but that is the thread that is running through this program that you aren't going to find in other creativity programs.
Yeah. And you know what it reminds me of is I went to a art, like an expressive arts workshop that was given by our mutual friend and colleague, Allison Crow. And it was like a several days of just painting. And this was during my period that I talked about last time, my 8-month period where I wasn't making art, although clearly I was because I was at a painting retreat. So that's another example of art I made during that time. But there we were painting and I was like, like uncovering wild things about myself that I forgot. But there was at the beginning of the day, her co-teacher or like assistant teacher facilitated these like movement exercises. And one of them, we had to go into the center of a circle. All the other women were around the circle. And we had to say, my name is Cindy and I am an artist.
Mm.
And I I don't think I've ever been more terrified saying those words. Like I knew I was in a safe space. I knew that I was supported with a bunch of other women who were also painting, who also felt weird about saying that. But like just claiming
Yeah.
that word for myself felt too vulnerable and it felt too like I only had, like you always talk about, you have to have this like toehold of safety and to do it, and that's literally all I had. I was like my pinky toenail was like in the safe zone, and I said it and I cried when I said it, but it's like it's this thing that we all know we're I've worked with children. I was an art teacher. I've taught K through college. Like those little kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders, until they hit fifth grade, are just creative masterminds. They don't care. They just draw and they just do whatever they want. Like they don't. And then they hit fifth grade and suddenly it's like they don't. They're scared. There's so much erasing that happens. There's there's like all this like self-doubt. There's all the voices, the teachers who've told them, you know, your nun story just
Yeah.
there again. And it's like or like you look at little toddlers, like they're just constantly creating new things. Like we're born to do that.
You
And it's
know,
just about like finding that again.
yeah. And when you say that, I'm reminded, my daughter is about to turn 20, so it's been many years since she was little, but she just was constantly drawing, writing,
Yeah.
whatever it was, circles, just circles on a page or spirals or, you know, um, a flower. She has like I found the other day, I found this notebook that was nothing but flowers over and over and over, and
Oh,
like one on each page.
talk
And
about iterating on an idea.
yeah, and they pretty much, I mean, there was, if you looked at the first one and the last one, there was some change among them, but I also remember her just quickly doing those things, like, but spending a long time doing them too. Like, so each thing was a quick, like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. You know, and
Yeah.
then, she'd do that for an hour or something. But having, and we've talked a little bit about this, but having like holding that lightly, like that something that you love so much, but then also you're kind of unattached. That's what it is when you're
Mhm.
little. Like you love it, you're holding it, but then also you're like, yeah, it's okay. I'm not really doing it. Like I said when I was in, my Holly hobby, house. I was just doing for myself, and I was perfectly content to just draw and write and
Yeah.
do one thing. I didn't really need anybody else to see it. So that's just so interesting, like just that memory brought up for me. And
Yeah. And my 15-year-old used to make videos on her, we had an old iPhone that she had, and they were brilliant. Like they would be full on stories. Like my favorite one was called The Mysterious House, and it was about the house across the street. And she used these filters and like there was like Detective 24, on scene, whatever. It was like this whole thing. And she would act out all the parts, or she would do music videos. I mean, it was, I'm gonna cry in a minute, so I'm just like warning you in advance. So she just a nonstop. And then one day we were looking for an old video, and I was like, where we backed up her phone because we're like, these are treasures, right? She had deleted all
oh,
of them.
oh,
And then I was like, oh, well, at least they're backed up. And my whole body's flooding. I shouldn't have told this story. She deleted the backup. And so they're all gone. Like all of them are gone. And but that's it. That's holding it lightly. Like she just was like, it, to her, they were, I mean, to me, I'm like, that's my daughter's genius. Like she's brilliant. She, like, look how creative she is. And then she's just like, I've moved on. And I mean, I sobbed, and I would like went into my closet and like closed the door, sat on the floor of my closet and just like sobbed for the longest time. But it's like, yeah, that is, it's just like you just created because you wanted to. And it didn't matter what you made. You were like enjoying the process of creating.
and I think that that's why people can't or don't recognize themselves as creative, because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm allowed to just, like, I don't have to be like quote unquote an artist or quote unquote whatever to have fun creating. Like,
Yeah.
what it's like, you can just have fun.
You
You
could just
can,
do it just because. You could just make
yeah,
something for no reason.
yeah. Other than I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. That just feels so subversive and so wrong in our culture.
I,
You're not supposed to
yeah.
do that.
And I feel like, whenever in our culture, whenever you get good at something,
Yes.
like, and I'm putting air quotes around it right now, whenever you get good at something, then there's this tendency, well, I should make money doing that. I
Yep.
should like, and so then we immediately turn that thing that was like just, and you can make money and have fun at doing things. You absolutely can. But then there is a little bit more pressure on it. Um, and I remember, I think I've shared that I'm in a band, and I have been performing since in public since I was around 5 or 6 years old. So there, until the pandemic happened, I can't remember a time that I learned a song that wasn't like for immediate like performance.
Mm,
Like, if I learned a song, it's because I'm going to sing it next week. I'm going to perform it next, like whatever,
yeah.
in a couple weeks or whatever. But when the pandemic happened, I started a long, long time when I was very small. My mom got me my first ukulele. I played the ukulele, and I hadn't really played around with it for but like 40 years or something, maybe longer than that. And my husband got me a ukulele for my birthday that year. And and we weren't performing because nobody was performing really live.
Yeah.
So I was just having fun learning all these songs on the ukulele, like just for fun. And I had not really ever done that, to my memory, like since like ever. And I was just like, wow, this is so fun just to do this for me. Like, and I remember my mom, who was also in this band, she was like, okay, well, maybe we'll put some ukulele songs into the set. I'm like, I
No.
think I'm just gonna save this one. I'm just saving this for me. Plus, I've already got a lot to do with what I'm currently doing. So I'll keep it with vocals and percussion. But that was such a eye-opening moment for me, because I was just doing it for me, for fun, just because I could. And that was new.
Yeah. I think that pandemic time, there was a lot of that happening of like, well, what else am I going to do? I don't have to, half of my life was just removed and I'm here, doing in my house, like
A lot of people
what
got
do
into
I do?
cooking. I know that.
Yeah. And that's another creative outlet that
It
people
is.
aren't necessarily thinking about, that, getting creative with food is a whole thing in its own.
Yeah, engaging all of your senses. I mean, that's what you're doing when you're doing any creative practice. You're, tuning in, getting more mindful. And I think that's why some people don't recognize the things that they're already doing that are very creative, because they're just not acknowledging it. They're not paying attention to it. They're not realizing that, oh no, that's really creative.
Yeah. And I think, there was that period of my life that I've talked about on the podcast before, of where I didn't think I knew I was creative, but I didn't think I was creative when it came to making art. And like when anytime I would do those activities where you come up with your values, like creativity was never on my list until recently. But at the same time, I am running a business based off of creating lesson plans and resources for teachers. But I like, creativity was just like, no, that's not it. It's something else. It's ambition, or it's, whatever it was. But it was like, I created a whole business from scratch out of nothing. And I created all the lessons for that business. Well, at the beginning, and then I had help too. But like, the fact, I don't know that I would have said I'm not creative, but I wouldn't have associated the work that I was doing, I think, as close of creativity as I do now. And I work with a lot of business owners, and there's a lot of business owners kind of in my personal network. And I was talking to one of them recently and asking her questions about creativity, just kind of like market research or whatever. And she was like, yeah, I'm not creative. Of course, they always say that. She was like, but I'm curious about it, and I think it would help me. And I think about this person, she does the corporate workshops, and she'll just call, she has a big network. She's very social. She'll call someone she'll know. They're like, what workshops you need? And they're like, well, we need a workshop up on this. And she's like, got it. And then she'll just go like, she's like, oh, I can do that. Creates a workshop out of nothing, and then just like delivers it. And then like creates ideas to pitch these workshops to places. And I'm like, that's all creativity right now.
Yeah, I think that, anyone who is an entrepreneur, a coach, has their own business, they're practicing creativity 24/7, even though they may not realize that, but they are. And I think one of the cornerstones, and you just said this a couple seconds ago, of creativity is curiosity. If you have curiosity about something, creativity is going to follow really closely behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what to say. I just like completely was like, oh, that's good. Good point.
True.
Agreed.
Indeed. So if you're the type of person who likes listening to these types of podcasts, you're probably also curious about how creativity might already be showing up in your life.
Yeah.
And what I often find is things that people do almost naturally or seemingly naturally are often part of their creative process, but they don't realize that because they've never really looked at it in that way, from that perspective or with that lens.
Yeah. I just started reading, I'm only a couple chapters in, but it's The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. And she talks about that at the beginning, that a lot of her creative process and the creative process of most everybody she knows is rooted in these sort of ritualized things that they
Yes.
don't necessarily know like she's, for example, a dancer is like wakes up and goes to dance class every day. Like they're not creating anything during that time, but they know that during, that 2 hours of dance class and that like conditioning their body and all the things is going to
Allows.
inspire them and allows them to do, the more creative work later on. And even like what you were saying last week, looking out the window and thinking, or like looking at an artwork, all of those things are
Going for a walk.
more creative than going for a walk. I've had some of my best ideas. I made a lot of money on a walk during the pandemic. One day I took a walk and I was like, all these things are being canceled. And I was like, the art teacher conference is about to be canceled. It hadn't been canceled yet, but we knew it was just a matter of time. And I was like, you know what? I could put on a conference because this big conference is being closed. And so like I was on this walk. I had the idea. I got on my phone. I have this big giant dog too. So I was like, I don't ever get on my phone while I'm walking him because he could see a bunny and I could be on the floor. But anyway, I was on my phone and I was like texting everybody I know that's an art teacher. I was like, I'm going to put a conference together. Can you do a session for it? I'm like, by the time I finished my walk, like I had like 10, 15 speakers already lined up. And then the conference happened like 2 weeks later. But I'm like, just giving myself that space and just like that's time to think, where I didn't, I wasn't like listening to any podcasts or like I was just enjoying the silence of the walk. And then like, boom, it hit me and then I sprung into action. That's another part.
I mean, that's the reason that I don't listen to anything or, have anything going when I take walks, because I look at them as part of my writing process, even if I'm not writing before or after. Well, but that's like part of my writing time.
Yeah.
Because I always get ideas about something. It may not be what I was hoping for, but I always get ideas about something and I love it so much.
It's so fun. It is so fun. Yeah. Just this morning, my goal this morning was, we have about 3 weeks. Well, from the recording of this, from listening of this, there's about 2 weeks till our program starts. And so I was thinking of, okay, I need to write some emails. I need to write some social media posts and like those things. I can't just say, okay, I'm going to write an email and then I just sit down and write an email. It has to like percolate for a while. So I went over to my art desk and I just started kind of doing my gluing scraps to paper thing, but I did it in silence. Yeah.
Process.
But and while I was doing that, I was like, oh, I'm going to write about this. And then I got up, moved to my computer and started writing. So it was like the art making was informing the writing, and the writing often informs the art making the other way around too. But like that goes into the name of our podcast. The name of our program is Spacious Creative, and like that spaciousness is
need
kind
it.
of a huge part. We haven't really talked a whole lot about
in
the podcast yet.
You can't have creativity without a little bit of space. Now, there are times when you have like a tight deadline and you feel like, I nailed that. I need a tight deadline to make me creative. And like what you need is a process and a practice that you have all the time so that when you do have a tight deadline, you're ready for that. But if you don't have any of that, if you aren't engaging with your creativity on a regular basis, if you're not writing on a regular basis or making art or whatever it is, if you have that deadline and you've done nothing in the past whatever amount of time, you're going to have a real hard time to make that hit. That's going to be very dysregulating. If you have been in your process and practice, that quick deadline is like, oh, okay, I got this. I've been, just exactly like your walk. If you didn't know all those art teachers, if you hadn't put in time on, all of those and ideas about who could do what and what would be important and what would be helpful, and you wouldn't have been able to do that. That absolutely would not have happened.
Yeah. And I think that process too really is going to look different for everybody else. Like someone who can't take walks because of the mobility issues or whatever. But like one of my processes is I will play a mindless video game. Like I have some video games that are like mindful that I'm like, I got to do a lot of thinking. But like there are some that it's just like like Minecraft. I will go into a cave in Minecraft and I will just mine and explore that cave I will do it forever. It is very unintellectual work. All I am doing is just wandering around and chopping down blocks. But like I had to I felt guilty about that at first because my husband worked from home too. And since COVID, but before that, I could just do all my Minecrafting. It would be like, no one would see me do it. But I'd have to tell him, I'm like, this is when if you see me playing Minecraft, I was like, I am actually working because that is giving it's kind of putting me in more of like a meditative state. And it's like allowing my mind to wander while I'm doing something with my hands. So I'm like, I'm engaging different senses and I'm like, but I'm also like right here, I'm thinking about this. So like, who would have thought like playing Minecraft would be part of the process, but it's going to look different to everybody else.
I mean, showers.
Yeah.
That's something that most people engage in, or a bath, like most people are going to engage in that every day or, every other day at least. And I actually started taking 2 showers a day at some point because I'm like, because I would do one in the morning, I would do one at night, and I would always get always get something. And it doesn't, I'm not talking about earth-shattering ideas either, they can be like real small little things, like just a little connection that I notice or something. And I have this, I have probably like a lot of people listening, I have a lot of blank notebooks around, and there are certain notebooks that I do certain things in. And whenever I get out, this one it's a big, like 8.5 by 11 notebook. It's got it's like hard cover. Whenever I get that out and I've got markers out and different things, and I'm just, really doodling pretty much, or, just writing words that come to me. My husband, when he sees that out, he's like, oh, what's going on now? What's coming up next? Whenever you're in that, something happens after every time that you're in that notebook. And he knows that I'm not, like, if you look at the notebook, you're like, I don't know. It's like a lot of words like highlighted, different outlined and doodles, but it doesn't look like anything to anyone else. But to me, it's part of the process.
Yeah, I love that. And it struck up an idea that you said, and then I was gonna. This is one of those times where you're supposed to listen and then not to listen to reply. But when you're doing a podcast, you're like, well, you kind of have to listen to reply. But I was doing both, and then I lost the reply. Ooh, what did it? Hold on, backing up. I lost it. It's fine. It'll come back. It will.
Notebook, whenever you get the notebook out. Showers, multiple a day.
Oh, you know what? It was about the shower. That's probably like you went under the notebook and I forgot about the shower thing. But I think the fact that the cliche is the ideas come in the shower and not the ideas come in the bath. Because when you're when women often mostly women probably take a bath, they're like reading or they're watching, they've got their iPad and they're watching a show, or like they're not just sitting in that kind of silence with themselves. But when you're in the shower, you can't do any of that. Like there's no, like I can't listen to a podcast or an audiobook in the shower. Like it just, reverberates and I don't understand what the words. So it's like, I can listen to music, but it's like, it has to be just that shell of just the place of just you. And so many of us are not letting ourselves have moments where it's just you, just us, just yourself by yourself with yourself, because it's like, oh, I got to get on my phone. I got to distract myself with something. I can't just sit here.
I got to multitask it.
Yeah. And that's probably all these people who are saying I'm not creative. Like, what if maybe you just have 30 minutes a day where you don't have your phone with you?
Or 5.
Yeah, 30 was a lot. As I said it, I was like, that is a lot.
Like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Even if you're not ready to take a walk, even if it's, it's like 100 degrees outside, like it is here, and you're like, there's no way I'm going outside. Just like, hey, I'm just going to sit here on the couch for 5 minutes. I'm not going to do anything. Or I can
That's
go.
radical right there.
It really is.
Mhm.
And then I guarantee in that 5 minutes, there's going to be one
Nugget.
idea, connection, something that happens.
100%.
I was in a program a few years ago, and one of the assignments that he gave us was to do 4 hours of silence. And he was like, you can't go on a walk. He was like, you can't read, you can't write anything down. You can't do anything at all, but just basically sit there for 4 hours. And I think his reason for giving the activity was for you to notice the chatter in your mind, to notice like the constant like stories you're coming up with and stuff. But what I found was it was a lot of noticing of myself, but it was just a lot of like curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I really noticed. Though I was looking out the window and I just watched a squirrel for the longest time. And I would like, the squirrel was just on this tree and it would go up and down the tree. I mean, it was just staying on this tree. And I was just like, oh, and I was asking myself questions about squirrels, but I couldn't get my phone out because that was not, and so I couldn't look up the answer to the squirrel question. So I just had to ponder about squirrels. And I'm like, it was so good to like really give myself that silence. So I have to constantly remind myself though, that that's necessary in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the point of my squirrel story other than it just was, I was just relishing in the squirrels for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I do that. I sit out and watch the birds, most mornings. And, I didn't realize I was going to be a bird watcher until all of a sudden I was like, oh, I do this all the time. And I love it so much, just watching, and sometimes there's like crazy antics that happen. And then you think like, boy, they're just that's just like what I saw at the grocery store the other day or whatever. But just, I think we've talked before about like making connections with things. You're able to do that more when you slow down and give a little bit of space and time for yourself to do that. And that's why we created this program, to help people find some of that, time and space for themselves.
Yeah. I guarantee you during this program, I mean, we will be filling is the wrong word. We will be including activities and explorations to do in between the sessions, but it's not going to be like, let's fill all your time with task, but it's like, we're going to build in that spaciousness.
Yeah. They're invitations to find what you like and what resonates with you and what might, spur some more of your creative acts.
Yeah. It makes me think of just like the bird watching, squirrel watching thing, and the spaciousness is David Sedaris's essays. He lives in England on this like land, and he walks around his land picking up trash. And so many of his stories are about like walking around his land picking up trash. But it's like, that's something he's the spaciousness he's giving himself, and he's coming up with all sorts of ideas. And he has a whole book which I have not read because I was just like, I'm not sure about this premise, where he talks from the perspective of the animals. So I'm like, surely that's him watching the squirrels and then making up the stories about them. But I have not read that one.
I haven't read that one either. Although I do have a David Sedaris collection on my bookshelf.
Yeah. He's amazing. I love him. I got to see him live a few years ago, which was really fun.
Ew, I've seen him live. Yes, twice. It was great.
So good. Yeah. So did we talk about everything about this topic? Yes, you're creative.
Mm-hmm.
2, notice that what is your creative process already? notice where you're being creative and you didn't realize.
Mm-hmm.
And then giving yourself space so that you can really feel into
Mm-hmm. And engage
what
and
creativity is
participate.
for you.
Yeah.
And start developing that relationship with your creativity that starts with the noticing and the awareness of what's already present.
And then evolves into like an honoring and nurturing.
Yeah. All of which we're going to do in the Spacious Creative Program.
Look at that.
It's going to change your life. 6 weeks.
It's like we planned it to do something. Yeah.
So, yeah. We're here to tell you are creative, and then that we know how vulnerable it is. We know how scary it feels, but we've created this environment to help you feel safe enough to be able to explore this without that terror.
Intrepid fear.
Terror is the first. I'm like, yeah, it does kind of feel like terror sometimes. Yeah. Because so many times, like when you were talking about creativity, but I was like, oh, if she just inserted self into everything she's saying, and just like we talked about this last week, but I just noticed it at one point. I'm like, oh, it's about, being curious about this. It's about being curious about yourself. Like, it is taking your like raw self and like expressing it and sharing it with people. And that is not easy. It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
So,
but it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Oh, so worthwhile. So wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get details about our program at thespaciouscreative.com. And I was about to promote our Q&A session, but I think it will have passed. Yes, it will. It will have passed. But if you still have a Q for us, just send us a comment or an email or something, and we will answer all your questions. But it starts on September 4th, so you've got about 2 weeks to join. To change your life.
To be there.
Yes, it's gonna be so good. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna love what comes next. It's all good. All right, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spacious Creative. We hope you found inspiration and insights to give you some momentum on your creative journey.
If you're ready to dive deeper, we invite you to register for our 6-week program, The Spacious Creative, Compassionate Practice and Process, starting in September. Sign up at thespaciouscreative.com. We can't wait to connect with you again on our next episode. Until then, trust your creativity and hold your inspiration and yourself with compassion.